As I have repeatedly stated, Julius Caesar was the best emperor. After all, he was the first emperor, and he did all the legwork for Augustus.
You're a dumbass. Julius Caesar was not even the first Roman emperor. Besides that, Trajan is the obvious best. He was Rome at its peak. He took a well-oiled war machine and took it to its maximum extent. How could it be any better than that? Plus, he was a military man.
While I respect Trajan as an emperor, simply objectively true that he is not the best. He is real good, but he is not the best. Caesar's military victories were far more impressive. Caesar was the underdog in almost every single conflict he was in. He pulled victory out of the jaws of defeat multiple times. He won when he was a number 3-1. He won against Pompey the Great, who was himself practically undefeated in Rome's first man until him. How the fucking Trajan even compare to all that?
You're forgetting the fact that Caesar was not an emperor.
Bullshit! Augustus, the so-called first emperor, literally adopted his name. His dynasty was called the Julian dynasty. All future emperors adopted his name to some extent. He consolidated powers together and undermined the power of the Senate and relied on his military for support. How is that not what an emperor does?
Because he failed to consolidate all the power. He was murdered. He was another Republican dictator that tried to make himself a permanent dictator. Augustus, the first true emperor, co-opted the Senate to his will, and even made the Senate loyal to him.
Caesar did that too. He just was never able to finish the job. He packed the Roman Senate with his supporters and even increased how large it was. He was just not willing to murder senators in cold blood because he was a humanitarian who cares about the lives of Roman citizens. He lived through the purges of Sulla. He knows how horrible they are both for the individual and for society.
Scott, did I really just hear you call the guy who killed millions of people a humanitarian?
First of all, virtually all Roman commanders exaggerate their enemy casualties. There's no way that Caesar killed millions. Second of all, that was natural for the time. The Romans were racist against non-Mediterranean peoples.
Yeah, I bet you deny the Holocaust numbers too, Kanye.
Now hold on a second, Yankee. Scout is just retarded, not racist. Scout, regardless of the exact number of people killed, he enslaved entire tribes for trivial reasons. His treatment of the Gaulish Celts was so horrific that even Rome's Gaulish allies turned on him. He did conquer a lot of land and achieve many things. I don't know what this argument is about, but Caesar cannot be called a humanitarian.
I'm high as fuck on great fumes. What's up, guys? Cockatoberfest.
You are probably too fucked up to understand, but the two over there are arguing over Roman emperors. Who's the best one specifically?
Bitch, in undergraduate school I had a minor in classical studies. I can't stand my own even when I'm asleep. I wanted to find more about those who colonized and genocide my ancestors.
Don't mind him. NG, he's literally high. Anyways, you never said who your favorite emperor is.
I don't really care since history was never my forte. However, I did pay attention during my education, so I remember enough. As an engineer, I like the emperor that can solve practical problems.
And who would that be, genius?
Obviously Aurelian. How can you goats be passionate enough about Imperial Roman history to argue about it, yet not see that Aurelian is the most pragmatic of the emperors? He reunited an empire split into three within 5 years, and built Rome's most majestic and defensible walls.
Aurelian is awesome, but he ruled for merely 5 years. Due to that fact, he cannot be the most influential or best emperor. If he had lived longer, he perhaps may have been the greatest emperor of all time, but it was not to be.
Only someone who's how could have such a retarded opinion? It doesn't matter if he reigned for 1 day or 1,000 years. He saved Rome and of story. Without him, there would be no empire to survive into the future.
You're wrong. You cannot say with certainty that someone else would not save the Roman Empire too. Aurelian stabilized the situation for his successors to improve upon, but he didn't really do that much. Again, a good emperor, but not the greatest. He did glorious military conquests and he cracked down on corruption, but that is not enough.
Then who is your pick for the greatest?
Caligula! Did you guys forget that I just said that I hate the Romans? You idiots! I'm supposed to be the high one.
But he was an evil bastard who watched people get tortured for fun and destroy the Roman emperor's finances.
First of all, he didn't destroy anything. Rome was perfectly fine after him. His successor practically had no problems. Also, making yourself into a god and doing literally whatever you want is the epitome of Sigma. He's my favorite because he was a ginger child who does whatever he wants. The Romans were coping hard and couldn't handle his godlines, so he was assassinated.
Are you serious? Even if you hate the Romans, we're still trying to have an objective argument about who is objectively the best emperor. Caligula cannot be the best emperor.
But after he killed his people than Caesar.
Fuck you!
Secondly, he used the military for more wholesome purposes like collecting shells rather than genocide. How can you call that cool? Yes, he enjoyed seeing people being tortured, but he was far from the only one. His entire family was killed by the previous emperor who did the same thing anyways. And they both did those things because it's natural to have a little morbid curiosity.
You're fucked. Only psychopaths have enough morbid curiosity to pursue direct torture and have it be one of their main hobbies.
Don't forget that he retreated from Germans and never fought a real battle. He even dressed up a bunch of Gauls as Germans and pretended to force them to retreat only to retreat across the Rhine. He is not worthy of carrying Caesar's name. You already taught it and I don't care that you have. How could someone so stupid, cruel, and cowardly be the best Roman emperor?
Relax, take it easy, and stop coping. Besides the stuff I said before, I would argue that he was actually setting a perfect example of what not to be. He was a Sigma male that was relatively wholesome compared to other emperors. He did not genocide. Who can blame him for torturing people? The human body is fascinating, especially when reacting to stimuli.
You're fucked. You're being as evil as the Romans who you complain genocided your ancestors.
You idiot, the Romans did not do it for curiosity's sake. They did it because they were greedy and wanted money and land and slaves. Italy just wanted to have a little fun. This cult is part and parcel of being Roman.
You're defending torture and fucked up shit, you're projecting cruelty on others. Are you retarded?
Know him high?
Okay, let's ignore the high person and get back on track. I think we can all agree that Caligula is not the best emperor. That medic can fuck off.
Fuck you guys. I'm going back to my lab to get higher. And none of you get a whiff. You guys are coping because you know I'm right.
Anyways, Erling is the best.
No, Caesar's the best. I will defend my favorite emperor until the day I die. He was ahead of his time, with any of his flaws being merely a product of his time.
You think Caesar's flaws were mere products of his time? Maybe the corruption, but not much else. He wanted to make himself a king. Even the other emperors had the decency to not call themselves kings. At least Augustus was humble and worked with the Senate.
What's this about this Senate? Did Scout get political again? I saw Medic laughing at your guys' stupidity while walking out.
For your information, Abby, we are not talking about politics, at least not modern politics. We are discussing which Roman emperor was best. Medic said Caligula, and we all made fun of him for it.
Medic sure, he's a funny guy. He probably had good talking points and you guys are just coping.
And he was high as fuck.
It doesn't matter, he has a minor in classical studies. Anyways, the correct answer is obviously Augustus. The first and the greatest emperor. The Princeps.
Hold the cap! Augustus, as great as he is a bit overrated.
He's not as good as Caesar.
Caesar got stabbed to death by his closest friends. Augustus died at the ripe old age of 75. Keep in mind, Augustus was a sickly individual that frequently dealt with sickness even when he was young. He even lived beyond his own expectations. He outlived all of his friends and virtually all of his family. He had uncontested control of the Roman Empire for 40 years and turned it into something that would last for 2,000 more years.
Like I said, Caesar did all the legwork. The only thing he failed to do was a piece of stupid Senate. And who could blame him, who are all evil and corrupt anyways? Caesar was a populist reformer that redistributed land to the people and provided subsidized food for Rome's poorest. He invented the calendar we use, though it has been slightly adjusted. Augustus was living in the shadow of Caesar, even taking his name.
Yet Caesar was unable to stop most of Rome's political problems, as they had consumed him. Augustus had no such issue. Augustus finished what Caesar started and did it better.
Exactly. The engineer. Augustus did what Caesar could not.
Yet Augustus still had many flaws. He was crueler than his granduncle. Augustus had no issues with proscriptions, destroying people's lives. Augustus would proscribe people simply to steal their money. Caesar may have been ruthless to foreigners, coming for Romans, but Caesar treated Romans, even his enemies, very well. Many of those he forgave would later stab him. If anything, Caesar was too nice. Augustus was also a hypocrite, making adultery punishable by death whilst doing it himself.
Augustus was flawed, as was Caesar, but Augustus clearly did better for Rome than anyone else. And that's what makes someone Optimus Princeps. The best quantity and quality of his good works, along with the stability he brought to the realm with his long and prosperous rule, allowed Rome to survive so much. Pax Romani should be called Pax Augustani.
Heavy, while Augustus was good and all, he really does not deserve the title of Optimus Princeps. Did you forget that Optimus Princeps was given to Trajan by the Senate, not Augustus? You forget the fact that none of Augustus' military victories were his own, but that of Agrippa. Augustus did good, but he hardly did anything himself.
An emperor with an eye for talent is extremely vital for a civilization to reach its peak. There is no better person to have that quality than the person who controls everything. Augustus was a shrewd politician and brave soldier, but you are right that he is no general. However, does that change what Augustus and his partners did? Agrippa became powerful only because of Augustus. That's a shitty excuse you are using to cope.
Is it really a shitty excuse when Augustus did not always pick the right man for the job? One of Rome's greatest military disasters happened under Augustus' reign, the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest. He appointed a shitty governor to the region, and Rome forever lost its ticket into Germany. Unlike Trajan, who was always successful with his campaigns and also was the one actually responsible for them, you fuck. He was Rome at its peak. He was Optimus Princeps.
You know what is more impressive than building up an already great civilization or peaking it, saving it from disintegration and obliteration?
Actually, it isn't. Obviously, founding it or peaking it is more important. You can't save something that doesn't exist till it's yet to be founded, and a civilization is remembered for their peak.
That is not true. Everyone knows that Julius Caesar is. The common person does not know who Augustus or Trajan is.
Because he's the best around.
No, fuck. It's because the fall of the Republic was one of the most interesting and dynamic part of Roman history that is also the best recorded. When things are falling apart, great men rise. Times of trouble are when man's mettle is tested. Hard times make strong men.
As based as that is, Aurelian did not single-handedly in the crisis of the 3rd century. He was one of the best, and a great general and soldier. However, Claudius Gothicus before him was a good emperor too, and responsible for putting the Illyrian emperors, who were very competent, in power to begin with. After him, Decolition truly fixed Rome, at least for a bit.
No, but Aurelian fixed the most urgent of the problems. While he didn't fix the economy, he did try to make the coinage actually better. He stamped in on corruption, and he infected Rome's borders by making it whole once again. Also, didn't really make serious mistakes like Decolition did.
Hey, what are you lassies talking about here? Am I actually hearing an intellectual discussion on this team? At this time of day, I think I've been drinking too much.
They are talking about which Roman emperor was the best.
What a discussion! If only Medic were here. Anyways, answer is obvious. Adrian.
You just had to choose the boy lover.
Shut it, cracker!
How can you say that? Adrian did the most dishonorable act of abandoning Trajan's conquest. Adrian did much good, but his taboo sexual acts paired with his taboo military decisions preclude him from being the best of the best.
Bro, do you honestly think Rome could maintain that territory? The Roman Empire was already huge. Augustus himself recognized the desert of Syria to be a natural border of the Roman. It was an attainable victory. Not only that, but Trajan wisely invaded Parthia whilst it was in the middle of a succession crisis and civil war. Parthia was weak.
was right.
Hadrian could have at least fought for it and weakened Persia further. Instead, he let them back without any contest. It would not have been too expensive because he loved building things. Hadrian's walls, the Parthenon, etc.
Keep in mind that Augustus and Agrippa built the original.
Sure, but the one we know today was built by Hadrian. However, I'd like to point out that Trajan was also quite the builder. He built so many buildings. He built some military fortifications, but his best works were civilian. Now, I may be a soldier, but a military is supported by its civilian population. He gave the Roman people food, wine, beautiful buildings, and glorious monuments, and he got that money from conquest. It was his fight money. Hadrian instead taxed his own people for that. Trajan did what Hadrian did, but better.
And because of Antinous.
Soldier, I understand your point, but it's important to remember that Trajan merely took advantage of an opportunity that was presented to him. Arthur was weak, that's why he was able to so easily flood Rome with wealth. However, Hadrian maintained peace with the East. If anything, that probably made room for more money than what Trajan did there. What is expensive and rarely is so bountiful. I will admit that his work in Dacia is different, as he took down a very strong enemy and gained vast quantities of precious metals. However, Hadrian is the one that fortified and consolidated everything. Hadrian's builds were also usually more symbolic than Trajan's. Yes, Trajan built that long-ass bridge, which definitely deserves recognition. However, most of his building projects were just basic bitch shit that benefited the people.
Maybe it did, but I don't think it did for very long. A century later, those defenses completely and utterly failed to defend the Roman borders. The Germans just waltzed in and severely ruined Rome. They burned books and looted villages. Those barbarians. Wolves may keep certain cities safe, but they do not work at such a large scale. However, the Roman legionary does. It's the Roman people and their army that are the ultimate defense tool. A great general to command that army flawlessly, such as Aurelian, would do for a better job of keeping the Roman Empire safe and sound.
I just got back from my long pissing session only to find you numpsers arguing over probably something stupid.
Actually, for once it's a relatively same discussion. It's about who is the best Roman emperor.
It is a silly discussion, for it is about worldly matters.
What the fuck are you talking about?
The physical world doesn't matter. All that matters is Christ above.
How can someone who kills people for a living be a pious Christian?
I'm only killing other mercenaries. I'm no different than a soldier killing other soldiers. Not like I'm killing innocent lambs. Everyone I kill is planning to kill me, and sign up for it. I am a soldier of Christ. Like Saint Constantine and the Optimus Princeps, we are both soldiers of Christ. Strutting unbelievers! It's like how he defended Christianity from evil pagans around for the persecuted Christians. I defend myself in the name of Christ from unholy mercenaries.
You can't be serious. You're making Medic look sane.
Now, fellas, let's not discount what he has to say, especially you, Scout.
Fuck you, there's no way this guy is serious.
Blind, you pipsqueak! The kingdom of God matters far more than the kingdom of man. Plus, he improved too besides Christianity. He invented the solidus, and the golden coin would serve as the backbone of the European economy even after the West fell. He built Constantinople, the city of world's design, in the center of London culture for a millennium. All this was powered by divinity. Constantine had the good news that was spoken by the men from Galilee. Constantine fought for Christ in Rome at the same time. He was baptized before he died. This kid descends from not only him, the Roman Emperor too. He'd been his knee for Christ, and God saw fit to grant Rome another millennium of.
But Christianity helped destroy the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire was very tolerant. For the most part, they tolerated monotheists and other pagans. After Constantine, violence between Christians and against pagans by Christians ruined everything. They even burned down Alexander's tomb for Christ's sake!
Don't you dare take the Lord's name in vain, you drunkard! Also, how can you blame Christians for being so persecutory when the pagans did the same thing, if not worse? Also, I'm not trying to defend persecutions against others. I do genuinely believe that Christ's message can be best spread through love, not fear. Jesus loves everyone. Jesus is knocking at everyone's door.
Yes, the evil Christian killing his son and wife. What a good guy.
What happened at Christmas was unfortunate and a terrible mistake and tragedy. The fact that Constantine killed his new wife, that was not Crispus's mother, shows that not only did he regret killing Crispus, it seems that he was tricked by some insidious plot. Constantine is clearly a victim here.
Well, what about his succession? He started a war with the Persians as he died, leaving his multiple sons, who started murdering each other and having their own civil wars to deal with the issue.
That war was entirely justified. Sheshan wanted to persecute Christians too also. His succession was a mess because he loved all of his kids. I cannot consider being a loving father as a character or emperor though. Plus, it turned out well in the end anyways. Like I said, as long as the kingdom of heaven is in order, so that with the kingdom of man.
Hey, pal, we're just talking about Roman emperors and who is the best. Do you have an opinion?
What do you mean that some of your biggest role models are Roman?
So you're saying that you like Romans that participated in a bit of our...
What, you love Nero for burning Christians alive and Diocletian for mass burning Christian scripts?
You bastard, you mute freak! How dare you!
Sniper, don't get offended. Pyro doesn't care about religion. He just wants to commit arson like his Roman forefathers. It's so happen to be against Christians' right. See, Sniper, Pyro mentioning the great fire of Rome under Nero is fantastic to him too.
Why you could have started with that, instead of starting with killing Christians is based, ever. It's still kinda fucked up.
You should have seen what Medic was saying earlier.
I have been eavesdropping on this conversation since Demonum was here, and I have to say that all of you are wrong and not even close to being correct. The best emperor is Napoleon Bonaparte, for France is the true successor of Rome, and what France has done, especially under Napoleon, surpasses anything the Romans did.
Spy! Ha! You being the most retarded one in this room. You will a scout or soldier take that role.
It's not retarded. It makes perfect sense. Napoleon practically united Europe before he was undercut by traitors within his regime like Talleyrand. He was the first real emperor Europe saw since Charlemagne, who was also French and the first king of the Romans in the West since 475.
Oh, brother in Christ. The Holy Roman Empire was usually Germanic anyways. The Holy Roman Empire was basically Germany, even if it was indirectly founded by a German person living in France.
Charlemagne was not a German person living in France. He was a French person. He spoke Latin fluently and probably spoke it as his main language. He was the father of modern Europe, and the Carolingian Empire started a renaissance that the rest of Europe would feed off of and benefit from. This includes the Germans with the Holy Roman Empire, which was utterly disintegrated by Napoleon, the reincarnation of Julius Caesar. The penultimate Roman, Napoleon carried the spirit of Rome into modern times, leading his soldiers with ego standards and making every other country his bitch. He almost conquered Egypt even. Napoleon is responsible for the Rosetta Stone and our ability to read hieroglyphs. Napoleon was not only restoring Rome militarily, he was spreading knowledge all across Europe. He acted as the universal patron of art, science, and military glory. He is Optimus Princeps. He is the best emperor of Roman history. Even Napoleon was aware of this. He loved Caesar, who was his role model. He built and he conquered. He spread law and culture to less civilized places.
He single-handedly advanced Europe light years forward in technological and cultural progress, much like that of Rome.
Bro, you can't be serious. France is not wrong.
Stop coping! We're just mad that Russia is not the third Rome!
Spy! How can you be this retarded? I do not give a fuck about Russia or Rome!
Plus, France has been nothing but an embarrassment itself and their Roman ancestors for a long time. If anything, French is basically a Germanic language.
And you call me stupid, you effeminate virgin! First of all, France had one of the biggest colonial empires in history. One that surpassed the Roman Empire. We spread French, the most epic descendant of Latin, all across the world, and it is one of the most spoken languages in the world now. We spread not only our language, but our laws and way of life upon many people. France is still one of the world's premier powers. French is not a Germanic language. English is basically French. 60% of the words in English are of Latin origin. The legacy of Rome surrounds you. And it's because of France and its people like Napoleon Bonaparte.
But Napoleon was not French, he was Corsican. French was his third language after Corsican and Italian. Other French people made fun of him for having a funny accent.
So what? First of all, Corsica was owned by France at the time, and still is. Second of all, the Romans did nothing better than assimilation. Third of all, are you saying that minorities can't be citizens of the country they are in, you racist fuck?
Holy shit, shut the fuck up! This argument is more autistic than I am!